if this kind of thing was such a bad idea, it was strange that Britain kept doing it and winning wars. How do you respond to that, Ike? I mean, it seems to me as if it would be odd if the United States, with its global naval power, maybe not imperial, but quite imperial-ish, didn't threaten this kind of action. Isn't it a necessary part of being a great Anglophone power that you do have the option to impose blockades? Sure, they're never going to be perfect. In fact, I think Nick Lambert's point is when it was perfect, it was way too destabilizing. But it's something you've got to have as an option if you want to deter another empire, which, let's face it, China kind of is these days.
Well, this is the right question, Neil, because any strategy of economic warfare doesn't have to work perfectly in order to have some effect. So the question that, or rather the argument that advocates of the blockade would make is, why not? Well, there's two reasons for why not. The first is the opportunity cost of what you would be doing with all the resources that you need to enforce the blockade. And that means the ships, but also the massive administrative capacity, the bureaucrats who are involved in tracing and cataloging all of the movement of tens of thousands of vessels around the world simultaneously, especially if they're incentivized to lie to you about their cargoes. And in the context of a U.S. China naval war, the U.S. Navy would be numerically outmatched. So any ships that it was dispatching to the South China Sea or Indian Ocean to police neutral shipping would be ships that would not be participating in an actual conflict against China. But then the other reason is more subtle. And that has to do with what Hugo is describing and the pushback and price incentives of neutrals. I think that the point that Hugo made about the American Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars is really key. It's not just that neutrals don't like it. It's that they actively resist. And they end up taking steps that tempts the blockading power to expand the war by going to war with the neutrals themselves. That was the lesson of the Napoleonic Wars. And that was one of the key reasons why Britain failed for the better part of a decade, the first decade of the 19th century, to make its blockade on Napoleon work. It by means of its blockade, it disrupted the potential coalitions that would have been so helpful otherwise. So the argument that we're making is you have to reconceptualize the whole idea of economic war. If you make it all about punishing your enemy, you're going to isolate every neutral country that you are making collateral damage. The better way to think about it is building a coalition that can collectively benefit from taking economic action against your target. But a blockade is not the way to do that.